Desperate to get to her destination, a lawyer hitches a ride with strangers but ends up in a situation where she has to fight for her survival. Liv is in a trance in the airport until she is awakened by a phone call from her colleague and friend, Ruth. Her coworker asks her whereabouts, so Liv tells her that she sent an email about her leaving for a few days. Ruth asks if she should let Danny know, and Liv remembers meeting the man who was assigned to work on a project with her. Moments after ending her call with Ruth, Liv learns that her flight to Inuvik is delayed because of weather disturbance. Unfortunately, the only available flights are due the next day. Liv reasons that she is meeting someone who's about to leave that day, but the flight attendant can't help her. Defeated, Liv sits quietly and reminisces about her mother. She then hears two men, Sam and George, talking about traveling past Inuvik, so she wastes no more time and negotiates if she can tag along. Despite getting refused several times, she offers to pay the men. Their argument alerts one of the airport officers, so Sam relents and agrees to take her to Inuvik. Their flight starts smoothly, with only normal turbulence due to the late summer air. Liv then pulls out her phone and sees a message from Danny, who's concerned about her. George advises her not to use her device since it interferes with their instrument. Later, Sam offers her a water bottle and a power bar, but she refuses. Eventually, she accepts them after learning that there won't be any stores open when they arrive in Inuvik. Sam then shares that he works as a photographer for National Geographic, so Liv also discloses working as a securities litigation lawyer. When he inquires more about her job, the lady dodges the question and announces that she'll take a nap, leaving the man concerned if he pried too much. To relax, Liv listens to a soothing speech through her headphones, and in no time, she dreams about attending a work party where Ruth had set her up with Danny. The dream is cut short when Liv wakes up to the plane about to crash. After a minor explosion in the aircraft's nose, George instructs her to fasten her seatbelt as the plane cuts through the woods and crashes into the lake. Liv regains consciousness moments later and discovers that the plane has turned upside down. She frees herself from the seatbelt and assists Sam in removing his. Although both of them are still in shock, she tries to attend to the photographer, who panics upon learning that they are in the middle of the lake as he can't swim. After Liv asks Sam to find floating devices, she goes to help George and realizes that his leg was pierced with a sharp object. More water enters the aircraft, so Sam selfishly evacuates the sinking plane, ignoring the lady's call for assistance. Due to Sam's movements, the ship turns, allowing more water to enter. Still, Liv bravely stays to help George. However, the man ends up drowning, so she leaves his body and swims to the surface. She then finds Sam desperately trying to swim, yelling for help. As she gets closer, he ends up pulling Liv underwater while he desperately tries to save himself. Fortunately, the man eventually listens to her instruction to paddle his feet. The woman tries saving them both and pulls them to shore. After a while, Liv's bravery pays off as she successfully gets them onto land, but Sam has lost consciousness. While inspecting him, she notices a piece of metal sticking out from his leg. When she tries pulling it out, the unconscious man starts screaming in pain. Sam warns Liv that he'll bleed out if she pulls the metal, so he asks her to make a tourniquet using his belt. She does as she's told, but the belt won't tighten enough, so she uses her scarf and a piece of stick to tighten it further. After several attempts, she successfully stops his wound from bleeding, but Sam is unconscious again. After ensuring that Sam's heart is still beating, Liv tries drying her wet jacket, eventually finding her phone in its pocket. Unfortunately, her call to 911 won't push through, so she checks Sam's belongings, where she finds a lighter and his phone, which has no available service. To get reception, Liv decides to go into the wilderness and climb the peak, but as she looks around, she realizes that they're in the middle of nowhere with only large mountains surrounding them. She gets even more frustrated after discovering that there is no reception, and when she yells for help, there is no sign of rescue coming their way. Upon returning to where they camped, the poor lady attempts to build a fire with a lighter, but it doesn't work. Luckily, she finds the power bar and a bottle of water in her jacket, which could help her get by. To survive the cold night, Liv collects twigs from the trees and uses them as their makeshift blanket. She also lays close to Sam to get body heat, and the moment she closes her eyes, Liv dreams of her intimate moment with Danny. The following day, Liv immediately checks on Sam. While she is carving something on a log nearby, the man groans in pain. When he complains about his stomach, the lady lifts his shirt and discovers multiple bruises. When Sam asks about their plane and George, Liv reminds him that they crashed, but she's hopeful that someone from National Geographic will rescue them after discovering that one of their photographers is missing. However, Sam tells her that no one is coming because he lied about being a photographer and their flight wasn't logged. Soon, the man passes away, leaving her alone in the wilderness. Liv breaks down down into tears. Moments later, Liv picks up something from the water, and tears fall again while she stares at her ultrasound image. As she does, her thoughts return to the night of the party, where she and Danny competed in playing darts. Out of nowhere, Danny whispered to her ear that she must get into the plane because it contained a satellite phone and a radio that she could use to get help. In reality, Liv removes her clothes and walks into the water, only to realize that it's freezing cold. Liv abandons her initial plan and instead makes a raft from the branches she collected from the forest. It takes her the entire day to build the raft, but it's too heavy for her to carry back into the lake. As night falls, she carves another line into the log, indicating that she has been stuck there for 2 days. While she eats one of the power bars, she reminisces about having dinner with Danny, where they talk about a coworker who made a mistake. Given her cynical views of the situation, Danny realized that Liv was serious about her job. She insisted that work was her life, but he teased that he wanted to know more about her outside of work. This led them to physical intimacy later that night, but Liv grew cold on the man the morning after. The next day in the wilderness, as she remembers the day her father Tomas died, Liv becomes more determined to swim into the cold water. She uses a log to keep herself afloat as she swims toward where the aircraft sank. Upon arriving at the crash site, she tries to remember where the radio should be before she dives. However, her initial attempt fails. While Liv is gasping for air, she remembers getting drunk in her home after her father's death, but she tries concentrating and finally swims towards the aircraft. As she gets inside the plane, her thoughts keep flashing back to her drunken self lying on the bed. After successfully retrieving 2 bags from the plane, Liv secures them on the log. Despite feeling exhausted, she dives again while recalling when she passed out on her bed. The drunk woman was also oblivious that the candle in the room had started a fire. Upon getting inside the plane, Liv aims to get the phone, but struggles to get it as it is attached to the control panel. Struggling for breath, she tries swimming back to the surface, only to get her foot caught in the netting. As she tries to free herself, she recalls the same feeling of danger when the drunk Liv finally woke up and found the fire spreading in her room. She started coughing due to the smoke until she collapsed on the floor. In contrast, Liv, in the present, manages to free her foot and eagerly swims to the surface while bringing another bag. In the past, a firefighter rescued the unconscious Liv while an invitation for her father's memorial was left on her table. Due to extreme exhaustion, Liv almost falls asleep as she holds onto the log. Fortunately, Tomas' voice in her mind wakes her up. With all the energy left in her body, the lady paddles back to the land but stops upon seeing a bear near her campsite. Liv yells to shoo it away, but the bear ignores her. Instead, it eats her power bar, leaves some droppings, then goes to smell Sam's body. Afraid that the bear would eat the man's body, she starts slapping the water and shouting to draw the bear's attention. And fortunately, it leaves. Once she returns to land, Liv is saddened that the bear ate her only food. While rummaging through her bag, she finds her soaked laptop, a charger, wet postmails that she holds sentimentally, and other random accessories, including an earring that reminds her of Danny. She then recalls when she started falling for the man despite trying hard to deny her emotion. She also began keeping the things that he gave her. As Liv checks the other bags, she finds a large sum of money and bottles of oxycodone hydrochloride pills, alluding to the nature of work that Sam and George may have engaged in. Liv is about to take one pill when she remembers being hospitalized after the fire incident. In her half-conscious state, a nurse told her how badly the smoke had affected her body. The nurse further said that they couldn't give her any medication because of the baby growing inside her. This came to her as a shock as she didn't know she was pregnant. Not wanting to harm her baby, Liv immediately puts the pill and the bottle down. While she looks at Sam's corpse, she decides to bury him, and for the last time, she bids the man goodbye. Eventually, Liv manages to build a fire using the sunlight's reflection, a spectacle, and a few paper bills. She gets overjoyed for such accomplishment, then enjoys its warmth. That night, Liv carves another line into the log to mark her 3rd day in the place. Just as when her survival starts to improve, Liv starts hearing Sam's voice in her head. He keeps discouraging her, saying that a fire isn't going to feed her hungry stomach, nor will someone rescue her, so she'll soon be just as dead as him. The next morning, Liv starts her day by building a fire. However, she gets lost in her thoughts again, remembering when she was still young and silently watching her weeping mother, Lucia. Her young mind couldn't comprehend what was happening, but it ended with Lucia leaving her. Afterward, Liv satisfies her hunger by licking the wrapper of the power bar while reminiscing about when Danny brought her lunch to eat with her, knowing that she didn't eat proper meals. While she continues to lick the wrapper, Liv also recalls the doctor's reminder of the food that she should avoid due to her pregnancy. Then, she empties a pill bottle to fetch some water. To ensure that it's drinkable, Liv surveys the forest of what she can use to boil the water. She then finds a scrap metal from the plane and modifies it into a pot, where she successfully boils the water. However, Liv's problem doesn't end as she struggles to get the hot pot away from the fire. She decides to use more bills to make another fire. However, Sam's voice makes her feel guilty for wasting money that isn't hers. This time, Liv tries to get unbothered, even burning more cash, which drives Sam's voice away. She puts out the other fire and waits for the boiled water to cool down before consuming it. The taste of water brings her back to one rainy night when the young Liv was complimented by her father for making delicious coca, a recipe she learned from her mother. When her father didn't comment further, she went back to drawing, then wondered why any of their family hadn't visited them. When her father answered that they didn't need anyone, the young Liv worried about being alone if her father ever went away or if he died. The man assured her that he wouldn't leave and he was too strong to die. When Liv started asking more questions about her mother leaving them, Tomas became upset, so she stopped. Getting hungrier and desperate, Liv tries to catch fish with her bare hands. After a disastrous attempt, she decides to build a fishing pole out of a tree branch, dental floss, and a ring. After a while, a fish falls for the hook, but when she tries to pull the fishing pole, the floss snaps, leading her to yell in frustration. Liv then tries her luck in the forest. While walking, she remembers how dedicated she had been to her job and even chose to disregard her ailing father. That evening, while the team took a break, Liv continued working. Ruth advised her to visit her father, but she defended that he was probably asleep, and if he wasn't, they didn't have anything to talk about. Ruth shared how when her brother was sick, it was difficult for her to see him that way. Still, she was glad that she stuck by his side, advising Liv to do the same. Insisting that she doesn't need her advice, Liv yells at her, so Ruth just tells her that she might regret not taking the short time she has left with her father. Later that night, Liv went to the hospital to visit her father. Tomas was sleeping, so she sat there while watching over him. After hours of wandering, Liv gets hopeful upon finding wild berries. Despite the doctor's reminder that she needed to avoid eating wild poisonous berries and Sam's unsolicited intervention that she may die eating it, she manages to get 3 different kinds and decides to try them one by one. The first berry tastes terrible, yet the second one turns out good, so she ends up stuffing her mouth with it. It's Liv's 4th night, and somehow, Sam's unsolicited existence in her mind also provides her entertainment during the lonely nights. She even listens to him singing Home on the Range while laying by the fire. When Liv suddenly vomits, she recalls herself vomiting in the bathroom. After she went out, she spoke to a realtor about selling her father's home. Afterward, Liv falls asleep and dreams of walking through the woods until she encounters a bear eating berries. Weirdly, she mimics its way of eating. Coming up with an idea, Liv checks the bear's droppings the next day and compares pieces of it to the berries she took. After confirming which berry the bear eats, she boils them before eating. After realizing that she isn't poisoned by them, she runs to the forest to get more. However, the rain suddenly starts pouring, so the woman rushes back to her campsite. As she aims to collect rainwater, she empties more pill bottles to use as containers. Liv then takes shelter in a makeshift bush and recalls Danny delivering her lunch on a rainy day. She declined the man as she didn't want to get distracted from their relationship. At night, Liv starts covering the bottles of rainwater she collected. As she looks up, she comes up with an idea and grabs the plastic shreds she made from Sam's luggage to use as markers while heading to the peak. Upon reaching the top, she remembers why she decided to go to Inuvik. Days before, she accidentally discovered postcards from her mother. She was apparently sending her postcards since she left, which her father hid. One said that she would be in Inuvik until September. Liv wishes to see her mother so she can get answers, as she worries that she'll turn out like Lucia, who suddenly left her, especially since she'll become a mother soon. While she stands at the peak, Sam's ghost wonders why she even went there at